almost morning. The hour of 10 a.m. having come and gone, the Housing Committee shall come to order. Clerk, please be advised the following temporary committee member, Rep. Han Nguyen, will be replaced with temporary member, Representative Kevin Oloko. We have the replacement letter from the speaker here. All right, clerk, please take the roll.
Jimenez.
Present.
Grant.
Here.
Canty.
Here.
Coffee.
Here.
Davis.
W.
W.
Thank you. Present.
Deuter.
Here.
Guzardi.
Here.
Holbrook.
Here.
Lilly.
Present.
Musman.
Here.
Rashid.
Here.
Senalitro. Sheehan.
Here.
Stava. Weaver.
Here.
West.
West here.
Olacall.
Here.
Rita. We have 15 members present.
Clerk, please add Representative Senalitro to the roll.
We now have 16 members present.
With 16 members present, a quorum is present. We have a number of bills today in front of us, and we do have session by the time we get to the afternoon. It's not afternoon yet. So we will be calling HB 4377, HB 5234, HB 5198, HB 3526, and HB 1429, starting with Leader West. The chair recognizes Leader West to present Committee Amendment 1 to House Bill 4377.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. I don't see the cameraman in here, so can I just stay at my chair?
That's fine.
All right, I'll stay right here. Thank you so much. Thank you to my committee as well. I rise to present House Bill 4377, and I want to start with a simple truth. Housing is not a privilege, it's a foundation for anyone and everyone. This bill amends the Housing Authorities Act to prohibit housing authorities from imposing time limits or work requirements as a condition of receiving or keeping rental assistance. If someone is paying their rent, following the rules, and doing what's asked of them, they should not lose their housing simply because the clock ran out. I received a letter from Alan Zeiss, who's the executive director of the Winnebago County Housing Authority. He had a powerful story. It reads about Evelina C. She was a public housing resident in Winnebago County at the Champion Park development, which was a 1967 development on Rockford's far west side, which is in my district. Isolated from employment and education access, supportive services, site public transportation, child care, banking, and food services. In 2000, Evelina moved from Mississippi to Champion Park to care for her terminally ill mother. She had young children and no high school education. In 2002, the Housing Authority in Winnebago County received a HOPE 6 grant that replaced Champion Park with a modern homes and included voluntary resident support services that encouraged and helped families with child care, education, transportation, banking, and employment, and spurred economic development that eventually included area grocery stores. Evelina completed her GED and was hired at Walmart, walking the 6-mile round trip. In time, she was promoted to a supervisor position, making it possible for her to buy a car and move out of Champion Park. She no longer needs or wanted housing assistance. With access to supportive services, she built her journey through... Lost my spot. You get the gist of the story. Started from the bottom, now she's here, and it was because she was given the opportunity to build herself up without the requirements such as this that can kick her out of her home for no reason beyond rules. So I'm asking that for a favorable roll call, and I have a witness here if you are willing to have additional testimony.
Yes, but let us adopt the amendment first. Representative Rashid moves that the committee do adopt Committee Amendment Number 1 to House Bill 4377. All those in favor say aye, and those opposed say nay. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it, and the amendment is adopted. Now, the chair recognizes a witness. Please state your name And before that, I apologize. We do have a number of witness slips. We have 31 witness slips in support, 5 in opposition. In support, we have the AIDS Foundation, Chicago Women in Trades, Housing Action Illinois, who have a witness here, South Suburban PADS, Champaign-Urbana Tenant Union. Do we have leave from reading all of the proponents? Thank you. And for the opponents, we do also have actually just the Home of the Sparrow, Illinois Network of Centers for Independent Living. So thank you so much for that. Rep. West, you can, your witness can speak. Thank you.
Is that on now? There, it's on now. Yes, I know of the opponent's witness slips, there were 2 in error, and they filed proponent slips as well, so they weren't able to correct those. So thank you, Representative West, for sponsoring this bill. My name is Bob Palmer. I'm the Policy Director at Housing Action Illinois. And yes, this bill does prohibit public housing authorities that operate public housing and housing choice voucher programs and owners of federally subsidized housing from having time limits and mandatory work requirements that could result in people having their housing assistance terminated if they don't meet the requirements. But there's an important provision in there, unless required by federal law. So if federal law requires it, then the work requirements or the time limits would stand. But this particular bill is a response to a current federal rule that's out for public comment from the Department of Housing and Urban Development at the federal level that is permissive in nature. It's not a mandate, but is permissive, allowing public housing authorities and, again, private owners of federally subsidized housing to have time limits as short as 2 years and have mandatory work requirements as much as 40 hours per week for every adult in the household. But it is, I want to emphasize this again, this is permissive, it's not a mandate. So unlike the work requirements that were passed in H.R. 1 for food assistance and Medicaid that Illinois has to comply with, in this instance, we're asking you to pass a state law that says that housing authorities and private owners can't do this, again, unless required by federal law at some point in the future. That's not the proposal that's out there now. We, as the story Representative West told, we very much support programs like the Existing Family Self-Sufficiency Program that encourage people to work, save, increase their income, improve their education so they can better their lives for themselves and their families. And if they are in a position to move out of the public housing or in the market rate housing. But I know in that story that Representative West shared, it took that person 7 years. So if there had been a 2-year time limit, they would have got kicked out after 2 years. We've worked with the Illinois Association of Housing Authorities. There are a couple existing housing authorities that do have existing work requirement programs under a different longstanding federal waiver. They're going to be able to continue their work requirements that have a lot of regulations and rules and protections in them. So there's nothing in this bill that puts any funding that the state of Illinois receives from the federal government at risk. It doesn't do anything to impact, and as I said, we support voluntary programs that, that are non-punitive, that assist people to improve their lives through education and work in many ways. The vast majority of households and adults who can work in public housing and in federally subsidized housing already do have earned income of some amount. It's generally not enough to afford housing. The rest of them are mostly ill caregivers or people with disabilities. So we ask you to support this bill, and I can do this.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Leader West, if I understood what you and Mr. Palmer said, so absent of federal law, so if federal law decides to attack this area, is that something we have to come back and change, or just federal law supersedes? And
No, and we did notice one typo that we have to correct, but and thanks for Representative Deuter for being a careful reader, but if you look at every section in the bill, except for the one place where we'll correct it with a typo, it says unless required by federal law. So if things change in the future, there would be no reason, if this bill becomes state law, there'd be no reason to amend it. It would already be covered.
just
And there
federal.
is actually an existing federal government community service requirement for public housing residents, and our bill doesn't do anything to impact that.
So presumably, the things that are currently impacting food assistance and things like that, it would be basically just the same thing. They would either be given an opportunity to volunteer or would have to find appropriate employment, correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
And again, the vast majority of people in public housing and who get this assistance, a lot of them are already receiving SNAP and Medicaid and so forth, so it's also, we feel, just very duplicative to have another work requirement for public housing authorities to implement when pretty much everyone is already covered by the existing HR 1. But we don't think, people are at risk of losing their food, lose their health care, and then on top of that, take away their housing, and then they just become homeless, and who, of course, the state of Illinois has to deal with people in that situation.
So I'm not aware of any particular situation
Yeah.
like this, but to your point, where if they're already receiving the food assistance,
Yeah.
they're going to have to fulfill these
Right.
requirements anyway.
Yeah.
Is there any way to make sure that if they're in that situation and then federal law says, or if you're in public housing, you have to do it, so they're not having to do 80 hours? I mean,
Right.
just to make sure that they don't have to, because they're getting it in two different areas,
Yeah.
that each area says you got to fulfill it for us, just to make sure. Maybe that's just something to consider.
Right, I
that
think
if it
that's
gets
a
to that
question for
point-
the federal government, actually, not for the state. so,
Well, I understand,
Yeah.
but because I don't like the federal government,
Yeah.
I'd rather,
Yeah,
I'd
okay.
rather us be proactive and just
Right.
making sure that if that were the case, and
Yeah.
it's not this bill, but maybe somewhere in the future, making sure that if you are in two different categories, as long as you fulfill one, you're okay.
Right.
Thank you.
Excellent point.
Thank you. Any further questions? Okay. Well, with there being no further debate, Rep. Canty moves that House Bill 4377 do pass as amended. Is there leave? There being 10 votes in favor, 6 votes opposed, and 0 voting present, HB 4377 is declared passed as amended and will be favorably reported to the House floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair,
Leader.
members of the committee.
All right. We are going to go ahead with HB 4234. Representative Syed, would you like to adopt the amendment before going into it,
please.
getting into it? Okay.
Thank you, Chair.
Chair, 1 minute. Rep. Canty moves that the committee do adopt Committee Amendment 1 to House Bill 4234. All those in favor say aye, and those opposed say nay. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it, and the amendment is adopted. The chair recognizes Syed to present on Committee Amendment 1 to House Bill 4234.
Thank you, Chair Jimenez and members of the committee. House Bill 5234 simply allows for an extension of the effective date of House Bill 3564 in the case that it is passed to January 1st, 2027. This is a reflection of negotiations with the Chicagoland Apartment Association. They have filed in support of this bill, of this amendment, and I ask for an aye vote. And for context, House Bill 3564 is the bill that includes the elimination of certain junk fees when it comes to rental leases, as well as fee transparency of having fees included on the first page of a lease or a web page linked that can be easily accessed for the tenant.
Okay, for the record, that would be HB 5234. Okay, thank you. You have a witness for oral testimony, or just questions?
Just questions.
Okay. Do members have any questions? Okay, got it. Sorry about that. We're going to repeat our amendment adoption. Rep. Canty moves that the committee do adopt committee amendment number 1 to House Bill 5234. All those in favor say aye, those opposed say nay. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it, and the amendment is adopted. Now going to, back to our member question. It looked like we had no member questions. Is there leave? Oh, one moment. There being no further debate on the bill, Leader Lilly moves that House Bill 5234 do pass as amended. Now, do we have leave? Thank you, I appreciate it. There being 10 votes in favor, 6 votes opposed, and 0 voting present, HB 5234 is declared passed and amended and will be favorably reported to the House floor. Congratulations, Rep. Syed. And moving right along, the chair recognizes Rep. Katzmo to present House Bill 5198. And as you're getting settled in, we're going to look at the witness slips. There are 73 proponents, 13 opponents. Do we have leave to read the... Yeah, thank you. So we have 13 opponents. Some of the Village of Oak Brook, Village of Itasca, Village of Winfield. And we are ready? Okay, so we're ready to get into it. Chair recognizes Representative Katzmo to present House Bill 5198.
Thank you, Chair and Spokesperson. As you said, we're here today on House Bill 5198, the Affordable Housing Planning and Appeal Act. This bill was brought to me by the team at IFE, who's here with me at the table today. As this committee is likely aware, since this issue is your bailiwick, there are about 45 municipalities in the whole state right now who, under previous iterations of the law, have created affordable housing plans. And more than a dozen of those, including several in my jurisdiction, have successfully drafted and passed and had community hearings and now have public plans that help them on the path to increasing their affordable housing. That original bucket of communities were those who had under 10% affordable housing. This bill looks to do two things. Thing number one is expand the pool of communities that do those plans from those who are at 10% to 25%. Wildly, that only includes about another 40 or 45-ish suburbs. So we're talking about going from the original 3.5% to maybe 6-ish% of the community, 7-ish% needing to have a plan, but now with the benefit of having online published approved plans from the communities who piloted this process. The second thing that this bill does is it updates the burden of proof in a case that would go to the appeals board. Our current board has been composed, but they haven't heard any cases yet. The original language for the bill would have had the burden of proof in one of those hearings on the developer. But the states that do this already and have had cases predominantly put that burden of proof on the village, which actually makes a lot more sense. They are the ones who are putting together the public record of why they're saying no thank you to a project. And we, of course, would want that public record to be robust, and it does, in fact, tend to be robust. So we want to align with other states' practices in that department. We will be coming back for an amendment. There were a couple of technical drafting issues in the way that the bill was delivered by LRB, but was already during the blackout period. And we are also, of course, excited to talk to anybody who is on both the lengthy proponent list or the opponent list about their concerns and help them kind of take a look at this with us and see where we can go. Happy to have just a minute or two for my witness if that's possible, Chair. Thank you.
Sure. The chair recognizes, please introduce yourself for oral testimony.
Good morning. Marty Cazzola, staff counsel at Impact for Equity, formerly known as Business and Professional People for the Public Interest, or BPI. BPI 23 years ago was central to the passage of the Affordable Housing Planning and Appeal Act, and we've been heavily involved throughout the last couple decades in changes to the law. I think Representative Katzmull, thank you for really summarizing the changes that we're proposing with 5198. I think they're really key to increasing affordability for folks, working families throughout the state, especially in Chicago's suburbs. I don't want to add to what's already been said, so I'm happy to answer any substantive questions about the bill. We think it's vitally important. It will bring this law into the modern age, and it will make us or make APA more on par with peer states.
Thank you. Do we have any questions? Okay. Spokesperson Grant?
Thank you, Madam. I have a question for the sponsor of the bill. Who are your opponents? You named some municipalities that were opponents to this. Could you name, is Winfield an opponent to this?
Just one moment.
Okay. There's a lot of things that I would like to say, but I probably shouldn't. But there's a burden here that you're putting on DuPage County, and I'm not sure that they should be. I don't think that they should be footed with this burden because of some of the. Well, that's all I'm going to say about it, because I don't want to say any more. All right, thank you.
Thank you so much, spokesperson. Just to answer your question, yes, the Village of Winfield is on this list of opponents. I also have Representative Halbert.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Representative, in all these plans that have been created over the years, what are some of the, let's say, the top 3 or 5 factors that leads to the high cost of housing? What's in the plans that indicate that?
So there's about 8 different things that the law requires municipalities to kind of identify. I actually should pull up the statute, but
so what are they? What's the results of the findings?
Many times communities will identify zoning restrictions that make it so that it's not possible to build multifamily, which is typically the most common form of affordable housing to be built. So zoning, they will identify that the zoning in the community is something that makes it hard for them to approve affordable housing. That would be one example. Resources are another one.
Meaning what?
Money or land that's available to develop. So there are communities that have identified a lack of developable land to build affordable housing, or that the municipality itself, because they do not have something like a housing trust fund, they do not have the resources to incentivize developers to come there and propose affordable housing.
So it's not a lack of private investment, it's a lack of public investment?
Both.
Okay, but if there's no land, it doesn't matter.
I believe there's one plan that says that there's no land, to my knowledge.
One plan.
Yeah.
Okay, what are other factors?
Beyond that, I can't think of any off the top of my head.
Was property taxes ever an issue in those 8 items? Was property taxes ever questioned?
I'm not sure. I don't believe it's in the statute, if that's your question.
How much of a factor do you think property taxes are in the price of housing? It's a simple question.
Yeah. So there is a statewide affordable housing special assessment program that makes it easier for affordable housing to be developed with a property tax incentive. And that is actually one of the things that we are proposing
So how would that work? How does a property tax incentive work?
It is a longer presentation than I think we have time for right now. It was part of the omnibus that passed in 2021.
So you're saying, though, that for this type of housing, property tax incentives are important, but Does it apply across the board to all property owners, that everybody's going to receive some incentive for property taxes, or just for this development?
I think we're a little far afield from what's in this bill, so I'm not quite sure.
Well, we're doing things because housing is unaffordable, property taxes have not been addressed, but yet we want to incentivize property taxes for development. So we know that it's an issue. If it's not an issue, then we shouldn't have to incentivize property taxes for developments, yes or no?
Excuse me. I didn't understand the question. I'm sorry. I tried to follow, but I did
Property
not.
taxes are a major factor.
Those are your words. There are many reasons that affordable housing is not.
We all have constituents, their property taxes are as high or higher than their mortgage payment. Maybe if you would factor in rental payments, they could be a huge factor in rental payments. And so again, you're incentivizing, some entities want to incentivize developers with some property tax abatement because they know the property taxes are too high. So by that admission, you're saying property taxes are too high. Why aren't we dealing with one of the core issues here? Number one, you said zoning restrictions. Why aren't we dealing with zoning restrictions and overall regulatory environment in this state? And why aren't we dealing with some property tax reform to make this stuff more affordable? Why aren't we doing that?
This is a wonderful yes and question, Rep. Hallbrook, and we want to have all those conversations, and you and I both have bills in those spaces. But it's deadline week, and I think we need to focus a little bit on the specifics of this bill. And having lived through this process in Northbrook, it caused a really beautiful conversation about a whole host of factors. And we want those individual conversations to happen in individual communities, including yours, to the extent that they are either part of this or opt into the process, and hope people will.
So in all those discussions, how many members of the Republican caucus have you had as a part of the discussions about trying to get to a solution here?
Personally, several. I'd love to talk to more, so let's do that.
And have their ideas been included in your legislation, or we're just having conversations?
I've absolutely had Republican co-sponsors on my bill. Come join me again.
Have their ideas been included? Yes. Who are you? Yeah. Thank you, Madam Chair. No further questions.
Thank you. We also have Leader Guzzardi with a question.
Thank you, Rep. Katzmal. I have some questions about the substance of the bill that's in front of us today, which I think might be a good way to spend our time. My first question is about the population of the communities of this bill. So you make a change here to raise the threshold from 1,000 to 2,500, is that correct?
We do, but that is one of the things where there was a step edit that we need to catch.
Sorry, would you like, is it your goal that when the bill is amended, that change will remain in the bill, or no?
It will be a lower number, but a slightly different number. There are a few communities where this just isn't a fit, and we need to make sure we hit that number just right.
So the threshold is going up, right? And the percentage is going from 10 to 25, but the minimum population is going from?
The minimum, I think, right now is going up, but maybe not quite as much as the LRB draft.
Okay, got it.
So there'll be a few of the original pool that slip out because in practice it didn't make sense for those communities, and
understood.
You got it.
The basic gist is that you're saying that for very small communities, this process may not make sense, and so we're raising the threshold for the communities who won't be required to participate in this process.
Precisely. For a 1,000-person community, there just may not be enough housing to pick a target that makes sense universally for communities that small.
Understood. Okay. So it sounds like while you're expanding the scope of the act, you're also doing it in a narrowly focused way so that small communities aren't overly burdened with compliance.
Absolutely, and we're still talking about a single-digit numbers of communities in the whole state doing this. Even within our own regions, we can see the variation. I had another local mayor tell me, thank you, this is awesome. Our community has 40%. Border communities would be added into this plan, and it would help us, like find housing in proximity to more employers. So this is good collaborative work for the suburbs especially.
And my only other question is about the change from 10 to 25%. Will that mean that those non-exempt local governments are subject to all the provisions of APA, or just the making the affordable housing plan?
Excuse me, that would mean they're subject to both the planning component and the appeal component.
Got it. Okay, perfect. I think it's a great bill. I would love to be added as a co-sponsor, and thank you for your work.
We also have a question from Representative Litro.
Hi, thank you, Chairman. I know that you mentioned that you had collaborative work with the Republican side to help you navigate this bill or put this bill together, correct? Is that what you meant?
Wasn't referring to this bill. The scope of the earlier question was clearly broader than this bill, and you guys know I love to talk to everyone.
Yeah, so this bill, when you worked on it, you didn't pull in the other side? Who was at the table for this discussion?
So for this particular bill, due to the timing, we had to file the bill, and I'm looking forward to contacting people in this window now in between. We know this amendment is coming, and so timing-wise, we're going to have those conversations now with anybody who'd like to talk.
Okay, and I looked it up. We don't have any Republican sponsors on this bill. I just wanted to point that out, but...
Correct, it was other bills I was referring to.
Sometimes when you're in a hurry and you push things through and it's not quite ready, that's where we end up cleaning up a mess later with legislation being shoved in and being voted down, and it's going to pass, and then we got to look back, and it creates a disaster later. So I encourage you, if you're in a hurry to fix things and the amendments aren't going through, maybe that's a sign that it should be halted for a little bit until you get it exactly right.
Appreciate the advice, and we'll talk to everybody and make a decision. Thanks.
Thank you. We have Leader Lilly.
I just want to make a note that this is the process of making good bills, making amendments, committing to talking to everyone, making sure you have the best bill. You are doing the process accordingly, and I trust that you will give us the best bill possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader.
Did we have Representative Deuter?
Yes, thank you, Chair. A question on the threshold. Can you just help me understand why 10 to 25? What was the kind of thinking behind going to 25?
I think there's a couple things. So one, it's both increasing that threshold to 25, but also, as Rep. Gazzardi pointed out, moving the minimum population up. So really, part of the goal is to include communities that have larger populations, larger staffs, to actually put together meaningful plans and really think through what makes sense for a lot of these communities. Moving up to 25% is that we've heard there are, in talking with some of our supporters, like the League of Women Voters, fair housing centers in the west and north suburbs, there are a number of communities that are just outside of 10%, or they are maybe at 20%, that see the fact that they're not subject to the law as kind of proof that they don't need to come up with a plan to increase affordable housing. And so part of what they've really been asking for is a way to require the communities that they live in to come up with plans to increase the affordable housing in their same community. So that is something that we worked in collaboration with a number of other organizations to come up with. And on the population note, many of the communities that are being included now are much larger and do have really substantial planning staff and kind of the resources to put together meaningful plans. So I think those are the two things that are how we arrived at that number.
Thank you so much. Did we have one more follow-up?
Yeah, a follow-up if I can. I understand kind of the larger communities, and that's where we'll have a lot of impact, and I appreciate that I think one of the outcomes of having this in place is that there are more conversations happening. Will there be any resources to help facilitate those conversations? Any technical assistance? My experience has been, even in the bigger, more sophisticated communities, these are conversations and topics that I'm part of the challenge is they're not as familiar with these, right? And so even though they have sophisticated planning staff, this is outside their space. So will there be any contemplated support to help facilitate those discussions so we end up with good plans on the back end?
In the past, like including in this current cycle that we're in, the Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus did offer technical assistance. I think they had, I know they did not get, they had enough money to do TA for a number of communities. They did not, I'm trying to think of the verb, they did not fill that. Like there were not enough people, or every community, let's say they had 10 slots, I don't remember what the exact number is. I think they got 8. Okay. Like 80% of their TA was spent. IDA has also, which is who administers the law, does also offer some TA. I don't know exactly the logistics of that, and in the past, I believe Metropolitan Planning Council has also offered technical assistance to help facilitate those conversations, the drafting of the plan, and those sorts of things.
Thank you. I appreciate knowing that support's available.
Yep.
Thanks.
Thank you. Great question. I would like to ask the clerk, let them know we have a replacement letter here from the speaker, subbing permanent member Stava Murray with temporary member Rita Mulder. All right, there being no further debate, right? 1 minute. Looks like we have another speaker that would like to offer testimony. Please introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is David Zoltan, he, they pronouns. I am with Disability Housing Justice, and I'm a frequent speaker here before the Housing Committee. Thank you for having me today. First of all, I'd like to thank the sponsor for this bill. It is deeply necessary, and it is important that we are working on housing affordability as much as we possibly can. This bill will definitely move us in the right direction, but I have a strong objection to what seems to be, to your point, Representative Deuter, the arbitrary number of 25%. We have a severe rent burden problem here throughout the state. It is estimated to be approximately a third of renters who are rent burdened at this time in Illinois, and in places like Chicago and other municipalities like that, we are seeing numbers closer to 50%. If we are only raising the level to 25%, we will never catch up and make sure that everybody can afford housing. And affordability is the watchword of the session, and so it's important that we get this right. If we are going to actually achieve the levels that we need to, they need to be set to a realistic number, not a number that advances the ball but doesn't get us to where it needs to be. That we should be looking at that rent burden number as the floor to where we're setting this limit and where we're encouraging municipalities to have a plan to put in place here. And I hope that we are working in that direction, and I'm happy to work with the sponsor in any way I can. This is especially important for the disability community in every community that I know of, anywhere in the country, in fact. The number of affordable, accessible units is less than 1%. So for the disability community, this is deeply, deeply important. When we are building, it is the key source of where we are getting new accessible housing, and that housing needs to be affordable, especially for the disability community, which is constantly looking for that affordability because we are often there's ableism in the workplace. There are constraints around the income from SSDI, SSI. These things are things that need to be addressed. So when we're talking about affordability, the disability community needs to be heard on this, and I look forward to working with the sponsor.
Thank you so much. Do we have any further questions? I think we had a robust conversation. Just wanted to make sure we didn't have any more questions. Thank you so much to the sponsor. It sounds like you're taking, you have still an amendment coming, is that right?
We will. Like I said, there were a few editorial corrections to some of the numbers and things in the original bill, and that also gives us the window to talk to more people now that we're all back down here again.
Okay, thank you. There being no further debate, Leader West moves that House Bill 5198 do pass. Is there leave? Thank you. There being 11 votes in favor, 6 votes opposed, and 0 voting present, HB 5198 is declared passed and will be favorably reported to the House floor. And we'll stand at ease for a minute.
Thank you, Chair.
us to replace permanent member Deuter with temporary member Representative Davis. Lisa Davis, to be exact. And now we will, the chair recognizes Rep. Olico to present HB 1429. Representative, you'd like to adopt your amendment?
Yes.
Okay. Can you confirm that you're adopting Amendment 2 to House Bill 1429?
Yes, I'd like to adopt House Amendment 2.
Okay, we've been told we're going to do that one at the end, because of your amendment. All right, you can go ahead with your presentation.
Do I have leave to present for my chair?
Yes.
Thank you, Chairperson Jimenez, Spokesperson Grant, members of the committee. I'm here to present House Bill 1429, an initiative of the Chicago Coalition to End Homelessness and Housing Action Illinois. At the end of June 2024, the U.S. Supreme Court in Johnson v. Grants Pass determined by a 6-3 vote that people experiencing homelessness can be arrested and fined for sleeping outside even when there are no alternatives. This decision makes it even more important that Illinois sets clear, fair standards that do not criminalize people for simply surviving. In collaboration with legislative staff, the Office to Prevent and End Homelessness, and continue conversations with the Illinois State Police, opposition stakeholders, including the Sheriff's Association, Chiefs of Police, Illinois Municipal League, as well as other advocates and individuals with lived experience, we've adopted several changes to strengthen the bill while preserving its core goal, ensuring Illinois does not criminalize homelessness. The amendment makes the following changes. It establishes the local regulation of Unsheltered Homelessness Act, protects individuals from fines and criminal penalties for engaging in life-sustaining activities, such as sleeping or eating, while clarifying that unlawful conduct such as trespassing remains prohibited. Revises the standard for immediate removal to align with the IML model camping ban ordinance, creating a more workable, consistent threshold. Maintains the existing 7-day notice requirement when threshold for immediate removal is not met, as is already the practice in some municipalities. This allows service providers an opportunity to come in, provide case management, and identify a place for individuals to go. It maintains the requirement that prior to enforcement, there must be a good faith effort to connect individuals to shelter and supportive services to the extent practical, given available resources. It establishes an interagency encampment policy working group, including the Illinois Department of Human Services, the Office to Prevent and End Homelessness, Illinois State Police, and other relevant stakeholders. These changes reflect extensive engagement, represent a balanced approach that supports both effective local response and the dignity and rights of individuals experiencing homelessness. We are working on an amendment, and we'll be back in committee to address some more concerns, and we are continuing conversations with stakeholders to ensure that the bill addresses what we're all trying to address here. And so I wanted to make that clear, but I also have here Nia Kelly from the Chicago Coalition to End Homelessness, and Liam Wheeler, who has lived experience with homelessness and is currently the Central Illinois Continuum of Care lead, to testify and answer any questions.
Thank you. The chair recognizes Nia Kelly for oral testimony.
I'm here for questions. I will cede my time to Mr. Wheeler.
Okay, just a minute. I will also read the witness slips if you give me a moment. We have 83 proponents and 88 opponents and 2 no position. Do we have leave from reading all of the witness slips, Spokesperson Grant? Yes. Thank you. I'd like to recognize Liam Wheeler for oral testimony.
Hello, everyone. My name is Liam Wheeler. I am the coordinator for the Central Illinois Continuum of Care. I oversee the homeless response system in 11 rural and urban counties, empowering communities to prevent and end homelessness. Thank you, Chair and Minority Spokesperson, alongside committee members who are here today, allowing me the chance to offer testimony. I am here in support of HB 1429. This is important to me because it is my role to coordinate and leverage resources between community stakeholders and local governments, state and federal governments as well. This is also important to me because I was homeless in McLean County. So in the Central Illinois Continuum, in the last calendar year, we served 1,113 individuals. 79% experienced homelessness for the first time. In our continuum, 7 counties are without emergency shelter and also feature a unique deficit of available rental units in rural areas when contrasted to the number of people experiencing homelessness. With changes to the COC program's national funding competition, it is anticipated that we will lose 74% of our federal funding. Our most effective and successful programs in the entire history of my region will be closed in Bloomington, Danville, and Kankakee. These projects effectively help clients to get off the street and into permanent housing. Rates of homelessness in Central Illinois will increase. Shelters that are supportive administratively by the COC are at full capacity with extensive wait lists. Often there is nowhere for our clients to go. Where there is a higher visibility of homelessness, municipalities are under extra scrutiny and pressure by the residents to act, ignoring what they don't see, which is a lack of affordable housing, any emergency shelter, or shelter with barriers too high to access the beds and services. Camping bans are ineffective at addressing the root of homelessness, which is affordable housing access. A ban on public sleeping is alluring, but it doesn't offer a person or a family a home to get back on their feet. Each campment has been broken up, drives my clients further from city centers. The result is a greater unwillingness to divulge their location, making it more challenging for street outreach teams to find them and help them achieve self-sufficiency while providing urgent aid. Many of these bans impose escalating fines of over $2,600 in a 7-day period, including possible incarceration. This depletes an individual's ability to reintegrate with society. I not only see this as the viewpoint of a service provider, but I understand it personally. The reality is that it makes us feel like criminals. I was homeless on the streets of Bloomington. I was afraid to sleep at night. What I needed to be successful in order to become a continuum of care lead was a community that welcomed me, gave me a place to process, a place to sleep, and gave me an opportunity to find my own footing so that I could stand on my own. When something has nothing, what is finding or arresting them really going to do? It's beneficial to prioritize working strategically in these communities to end homelessness. I am asking you to vote yes on HB 1429. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wheeler. Thank you very much for sharing your story with us and also for your dedication to your employment and your job and making sure that other people in the same position have the resources they need. So thank you so much. Do we have any questions? Okay. Rep. Sheehan?
Thank you, Chair. Representative, you're looking sharply dressed as usual. A couple quick ones. Is law enforcement still opposed on what's going to be your floor amendment?
I believe Naya Kelly with the Chicago Coalition to End Homelessness. Thank you for the question, Representative. I believe that the state police are neutral on it, but I believe the associations, including the chiefs of police as well as the sheriffs, are still opposed.
Okay. And I'm just looking at some of the crux of the bill. Public property, does this include government buildings, et cetera? So are they allowed to congregate around government buildings, or are we allowed to remove those individuals from those type of areas, village halls, et cetera?
Yes, so a couple of things to kind of get into the crux of it. So if someone is in a village hall or in city hall and there's the policy that that person has to have business within that space, and if not, that they are trespassing, we ensure that they can still have someone trespassed if they are if they're in a space that they're not supposed to be. It is what we're really targeting is outside spaces. So you will often see people who are experiencing homelessness on park benches or in other public areas. It's making sure as long as they're not obstructing and they're not stopping the engagement of business, whether it is a T-ball game at a park or some other activity at a park or in public, ensuring that they are not arrested or fined for that activity, for life-sustaining activity.
I understand, and I appreciate that gentleman's testimony and struggle, and I'm sure he can attest to this as well. A lot of our homeless individuals, obviously being a law enforcement officer for 20 years, in encountering some of these individuals, you know, there's a lot of mental health issues that go along with some of these individuals, drug issues, and I'm just kind of concerned if they're allowed to congregate on playgrounds or those type of areas, you know, and if it's a group of children, you know, going to the park unsupervised. This is where kind of as a father and as a law enforcement officer, it really makes me uncomfortable. Is there anything to kind of, you know, where we can put stipulations and something like that, or how can you address something like that?
Yeah, so the question of mental health as well as drug usage for people who are experiencing homelessness, oftentimes what folks are seeing with folks who are experiencing homelessness, and I think Liam can attest to this, when people are sleeping outside at night or not sleeping outside at night, and they are, you know, at this point experiencing issues related to sleep deprivation, it may seem as though that they are experiencing mental health issues. To the crux of your question of can a municipality remove someone who is in a playground area or a space of that nature to maintain safety? Absolutely. We are not stopping municipalities or park districts or any local unit of government from being able to ensure the safety of all residents. And we want that to also include people who are experiencing homelessness. If you all will indulge me for just one second. And we've been doing Freedom of Information Acts as these ordinances have been passing. And one of the ones that we got back from a community was that a woman was experiencing homelessness and had a crime committed against her in the park. She went to the police to let them know that she was the victim of a crime. She was ticketed by the police department for sleeping outside despite being a victim of a crime. And so our fear is that when these ordinances are put into action, that people who are experiencing homelessness and who are marginalized are going to be further harmed because they're not going to want to report harm that is being done to them.
Okay. Unless I'm reading this wrong, does this exempt any, and I really appreciate that because as both, you know, in both capacities as a state rep and as law enforcement, I've been down to Catholic Charities in Joliet, gotten the tour, been down to Guardian Angel, and the work that those entities do, it's an absolute blessing, and they actually do real good, and there actually is a real problem. So I really appreciate the spirit on this. So this doesn't exempt anyone from home rule, or am I reading this wrong? Does this supersede home rule?
So municipalities can continue to have anti-camping bans. What the legislation is saying is that if someone is experiencing homelessness and engaging in life-sustaining activity, that they would not be able to ticket and fine. Liam brought up the point of these tickets go from $75 to $150 all the way up to $750 on the seventh day, meaning that someone can have $2,600 worth of fines in 7 days. What we're also finding is that the tickets may happen, but they're not being paid because the person doesn't have money.
Right.
And they're also not appearing in court, which means that they are also now have an arrest warrant out for them.
Right, and I think a punitive measure is not the end-all, be-all, obviously with, you know, all the possible resources that some of these individuals could be going to, but some of these individuals don't want to go and utilize these resources, and then it becomes a nuisance issue for the villages, cities, police departments, and residents, and that's where kind of, I guess, my fear comes in. Getting back to the original point, like I understand if there's a subject having sleep deprivation, they're sleeping on a park bench, but my 11-year-old daughter and her friends want to go to that area. As a parent, I'm I don't feel safe letting my young girls do something like that unsupervised with maybe an adult that maybe has some sort of mental health or addiction issues that is allowed to sleep on a park bench and law enforcement cannot remove that person.
I understand.
So I appreciate it.
Thank you.
No further questions.
Thank you. We have Leader Gazzardi with a question.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. And thanks for those questions, Rep. Sheehan, and for your testimony. Just to clarify, this bill this is maybe a question for you, Rep. Olacall. Am I understanding it right that this bill is restoring the pre-grants pass status quo?
That is correct. It's specifically to address, so what we've made clear to municipalities and communities is that existing ordinances that were in place prior to the Supreme Court decision will not be affected by this.
Okay, so municipalities were operating under this regime that you're proposing here for a long, long time, for decades. They were getting by just fine. There was a Supreme Court decision a couple of years ago. Some municipalities have taken action to pass ordinances since then. All we're saying is just go back to how you were doing business every year before 2024 in all of our living memory. Is that what this bill would do?
Yes, and if you have not passed any of these ordinances since, this does not apply.
The bill doesn't apply. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no further questions, no further debate. Representative Lisa Davis moves to recommend House Floor Amendment 2 to House Bill 1429 be adopted. Is there leave? I apologize. Before that, did anybody else wish to speak on the bill that is here today with us? Thank you. Thank you for your patience on that.
Good morning. Good morning, Chair, spokesperson, committee members. My name is Gordy Hilton. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at the Illinois Municipal League. Thank you for the opportunity to testify this morning on House Bill 1429. Municipalities share the goal of ensuring that individuals experiencing homelessness are treated with dignity and connected to the services that they need. At the same time, local governments are responsible for maintaining public spaces that are safe and accessible for all residents. House Bill 1429, as amended, makes that balance more difficult to achieve. The bill imposes restrictions that limit when and how municipalities can respond to conditions in public spaces, even when those conditions raise clear concerns related to public health, sanitation, or accessibility. In practice, the 7-day notice requirement functions as a delay on intervention. It restricts the ability of local officials, outreach teams, and public health personnel to respond in real time, not just to enforce ordinances, but to connect individuals with shelter services and support before conditions worsen. As the sponsor stated, the grants pass ruling did in fact clarify municipal authority for progressive and stepwise enforcement of these sorts of ordinances, and that local governments play an important role in addressing encampments that pose health and safety concerns, while also ensuring connection to the services and alternatives to homelessness that these individuals need. In the ruling, the court mandated stepwise progressive enforcement neutrally applied. Under progressive enforcement, municipalities give 24 hours notice and do not use excessive fines or bail to encourage the use of resources such as shelters to protect individuals and the community. These are regulations on behavior, not regulations on status, and again, they are neutrally applied. This is not a question as to whether to support individuals experiencing homelessness. Municipalities and others are already doing that work every day. The concern is whether local governments will retain the flexibility needed to respond appropriately to conditions in their communities as they arise. And House Bill 1429, as written, creates a rigid framework that may unintentionally delay outreach, limit responsiveness, and allow conditions to worsen before action can be taken. For those reasons, we respectfully ask for a no vote, and we welcome continued conversations with the sponsor and the committee and stakeholders on how to achieve these shared goals. Thank you.
Rep. Davis?
Thank you very much for your testimony, sir. And I mean, I guess, and I'm not a municipal government representative. I've never been elected to a board or trustee or anything like that. But when municipalities don't feel like they want to work with organizations to help address their homelessness population, it's a little tough. You know, I've got a community in my district, the city of Markham. One of my organizations wants to buy a hotel and turn it into a homeless shelter. And the municipality won't work with the organization that wants to buy it. It's not nestled in the middle of a community. It's right off highway, expressway, but they won't work with them to allow them to build it. Now, I'm no Bible scholar, but, you know, good or bad, folks in these situations are going to be with us. And if we can figure out how to create opportunities for them, they're still going to be in our communities. And if the approach is not in my backyard, they're still there. They're still going to be there. And if we can create the right space for them, I think it's something that helps us all. So I can appreciate, you know, you're saying that this restricts a municipality's ability to address certain situations. I mean, I think with the right conversation, we can work through that. But again, when municipalities are kind of saying, I don't want it in my backyard, I don't want it in my community, meaning shelters, it just makes the broader situation tough when we hear that. So thank you for sharing your thoughts. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Representative. We share those goals and look forward to working with the sponsor to hopefully achieve those shared goals.
We have Rep. Weaver.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to clarify the right of private property owners. If I own private property, what's my right to remove somebody? Is that defined through this?
Yeah, so we make clear that any federal, state, or local ordinances that are already on the books, that includes trespassing laws. And so if you're talking about private property, then yes, the property owner can call the police or engage in whatever is deemed necessary in order to remove those folks from their property.
So it's based on a local ordinance generally. So I guess there could be instances where if there's not a trespassing law, then I wouldn't have that capacity.
There's a state law on trespassing.
Okay. So then I guess I would say if we change that, then that could change. But that's not what your bill is.
Correct.
Got it. Thanks.
And if I could just respond to one more thing. In regards to the 7-day notice that we included, one of our hopes is that service providers will have the opportunity to be able to do outreach in order to move people or to get them assessed for housing opportunities. And so I know some folks may find that to be a bit of time, but it does allow social service agencies the opportunity to work with individuals in encampments.
Thank you. Any more questions? Oh, Leader Lilly.
Thank you for your testimony. You ended your testimony with, it may cause something. And I thought that was too vague to say vote no. You have any facts that what would happen with this type of legislation?
Well, this legislation, as the sponsor stated, would roll municipal authority back to what existed before the Supreme Court explicitly allowed for it and allowed for municipalities to engage in progressive, stepwise intervention to deal with public camping and encourage folks who are engaged in that behavior to connect with social service providers. So the legislation just makes it more difficult for municipalities to intervene when intervention is necessary.
I don't believe your legislation does that, but what type of activity will this type of legislation provide to have community providers and the state to work together on ensuring the homeless population is safe and secure? Either one. I'm sure the municipalities have some of that in their workings.
Thank you, Leader, for the question. So some of the work that we have been doing over the last 2 years is working with the state's Office to End and Prevent Homelessness, as well as the Department of Human Services, to identify ways to ensure that when encampments pop up, that social service organizations are going out and doing assessments of people, determining what type of housing would make the most sense, whether it is permanent supportive housing, bridge housing, or transitional housing, has been really our work. I think, I wear two hats in the Capitol, working on legislation, but also working on budget, understanding that the governor's budget has included funding for homelessness. We did see a $10 million cut in his proposal for this year, and so we're hoping to get that back in. But the work really is ensuring that we have boots on the ground in terms of social service agencies and folks able to build relationships. I think one of the things that was said is that some people don't want assistance. What we found in talking to folks is that they want to stay in their community. So we have one community that passed this ordinance and then we're like, well, we can drive people an hour away to the nearest shelter. There was no shelter in that community. And they're like, well, we'll volunteer to drive them an hour away. But that person had lived in that community their entire life. Their wife was buried in that community, and he wanted to be there because that was his life. And so they may have said he did not want services. Community that he knew and loved.
It's fair to say, so the work is already being done.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
We have Rep. Canty.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. And Rep. Davis, I was on municipal government, and so this has come up quite regularly. So, in Arlington Heights, several years ago, we were able to pass an ordinance around affordable housing and making sure that developers of particularly multi-family units knew what the expectations were around providing brick and mortar affordable housing. But even more recently, I know we have worked with some of these nonprofit organizations around folks who are unhoused in our community, and a potential ordinance was brought up to disallow camping. And one of the things that came out in the testimony of the presentation of that proposed ordinance was how expensive it would be for a municipality to actually enforce laws like this, because it might be incredibly difficult to tell the difference between a person who has fallen asleep on a bench or is actually living on that bench. You would have to have around-the-clock surveillance. And then questions arose as to whether you would have to chalk some part of that person the way that we do to enforce parking ordinances. And so that was really troubling. And what ended up occurring was that we did not pass that ordinance because it would be so difficult to maintain, but instead turned our directions towards working with our social services unit within the local government and our local police department, fire department, and the nonprofit communities to make sure that we are addressing people in our community that need services and support and housing, and connecting them with the services that they need. And we have found that to be a method that works extremely well and is incredibly cost efficient to the community.
Thank you, Representative. And one more thing to add on to that. In communities where we've seen these being brought up, where police have been invited into the conversation, like in Quincy, Illinois, we've seen the police said, we don't know